I'm Greg Giuliano. I'm an executive coach, organizational change consultant, and author. I believe leaders have the power to shape the future and change people's lives. I also believe people who challenge the status quo and go beyond usual and ordinary are rare. They're willing to go to the edge and push farther, over and over again. When I find these ultra leaders, I love to talk with them. In each episode, I talk with ultra leaders to learn how they do what they do and how they keep growing as leaders. I promise you a full dose of ultra leadership from other ultra leaders just like you in every conversation. We're at the edge of another episode. Let's jump in. Welcome to another episode of Ultra Leadership. I'm Greg Giuliano. My guest today is Aarthi Murali. At the outset, before I read an introduction of her, I just want you to know she's a true ultra leader, somebody who I've come to know. I had the pleasure of working with her and her team, and she's just an amazing leader. I learn something every time I'm with her, and that's why I wanted to have her here on the program today. Aarthi is an award-winning customer experience executive, and currently she's serving as Executive Vice President of Service Excellence and Transformation at Holman, where she plays an integral role in Holman's customer engagement strategy. Aarthi has a wealth of customer experience expertise gained during a distinguished career in the financial sector. During her 20-plus year career in that industry, she led large-scale, human-centered transformation programs for iconic organizations like J.P. Morgan Chase, and most recently as M&T Bank's first ever Chief Customer Experience Officer. Aarthi has received several prestigious awards for customer experience leadership throughout her remarkable career. She was named to American Banker's list of most powerful women in banking in both 2022 and 2023. Aarthi was also among the North American winners of Forrester's inaugural Customer Obsessed Leadership Award in 2023, and she was also included in the CX Network's Top 50 CX Influencers of 2024. She earned her Master of Science in Computer Science from Loyola University Chicago, where she now serves on the Dean's Advisory Council for the school's College of Arts and Sciences. She and her family live in Delaware, and I am so thrilled to have her here because, like I said, I learn something every time I talk with Aarthi. Welcome, Aarthi.
Thank you, Greg. I am super delighted to be here on your fantastic podcast. Thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit of my thinking today.
Absolutely. Yeah, like I said, I learn every time I talk to you. It's been one of the joys of my career of getting to know you as a leader and watching you in action. And it's incredible. So what I want to start is your experience in customer experience, which is new for a lot of organizations, that you, because of your function and your area of expertise, you are the face of change. When you go into an organization, you're there to change something and introduce a new way of thinking and a new way of engaging and going to market. So you represent change. So I want to know, what are the lessons that you've learned? What's been your experience of, that you are the bringer of change? And what are the biggest lessons that you've learned as a leader of change?
Greg, that's a great and astute observation that you've made about typically leaders in the customer service and customer experience and excellence spaces being the tip of the spear in observing and driving the change. And I think a huge part of that is because this is a group inherently representing the voice, the experience, the needs, the wants and desires of the customers. And companies that succeed and thrive, not just survive in today's economy, are those that can have a very clear mission and purpose in terms of who are they, who are we serving, what are we serving, and why, and then being able to connect that to the brand. The brand is really the face of the organization to our clients. So when we think about clients, they look at the product through the lens of the brand. They absorb that brand. They believe in the brand or not. They are disappointed or elated at the brand. When you go into your favorite NFL game. And if you get the chance to actually watch it live in person, it's fantastic. I had an opportunity to do that in Buffalo when I was with the M&T with my M&T bank. You have a sense of pride, ownership, association that you have with the brand, and that's the power of the brand. But when you take that and wrap that around and bring that into how does the customer experience and associate that brand, it's through day-to-day moments, daily experiences, all of the product offerings that the brand offers, and that builds over time your loyalty, your retention, and the recommendation or net promoter score, as we sometimes call it, in order to stay affiliated to that brand. And then, most importantly, these customers come back into your brand through your employees. And these employees bring the brand to life. So I have been always passionate, and from a scientific perspective, have been over the years been able to correlate that the brand, the customer, and the employee work together to deliver that experience for the customer. So when we talk about change and being the tip of the spear in terms of representing change in the organization, that's really the secret sauce. And that's really why leaders in the CX space tend to be the drivers of change, because they're looking at it through a lens of, I know what the customer wants. I know what my brand needs to look like. And here's the power of the employee being able to bring all of that to life in a very consistent and exceptional way.
That's massive transformation. When you just what you talked about, oh yeah, there it is. But that's just massive transformation for most organizations,
Yeah.
because that's a perspective that we want to take in terms of how we engage, how we bring the brand to life, and how we engage customers. Well, shoot, we might have to change our go-to-market strategy. We might have to change our operating model. We might have to change our structure. We might have to change our systems. So there's massive transformation there. And all of that macro level change requires micro level change. That you've got all these people who show up every day and put their lunch in the fridge in the break room, and they go sit down in their cube, and they've got to represent in order to activate on the transformation that you're talking about. What's been your lesson there and your secret there of how do you win those hearts and minds to help the individuals understand, adopt, and apply the new order that you're introducing?
Greg, this is why I love our conversations. You have this amazing superpower of taking a massive strategic framework that's based on science, data, hypothetical analysis, and distill it down to, okay, Aarthi, that's fantastic. And where do we start? And then how do we make this real? That is an amazing question. So if I were to distill down that strategy, so if we start with the belief that this is a closed loop triangle, or a three-legged stool, as my dear friend Chris Kay would call it, you have the customer, the brand experience, the customer experience, and the employee experience powered by, I would add that in at this point, powered by digital experience and product experience. And when we think about customers and employees, the way I've evolved the strategy, the strategic position over the past year and a half is to really think about it as a human-centric ecosystem. It's your customers, it's your employees, also include your vendors and partners and all the other actors who play a part in this ecosystem. So the interesting part is everyone has a piece of the pie. And you need all these different peoples with different whiffums, what's in it for me's, who are sitting there. They're in this town hall listening to me, let's say, explain the strategy. And it's lunchtime, to your point, and it's a brown bag lunch town hall. This is a real life situation, and they are hungry. And I'm talking about this three-legged triangle surrounded by digital and product. What's in it for them is truly the ability to convey the need for change. I would say that's step number one in any transformation. Being able to clearly articulate the why of the change is really important. The clarity means different things to different people. This I have learned over the years through experience. When we articulate and say we have to simplify, a strategy could be we need to transform because we need to simplify our offerings to customers. That's it. And you could walk away saying, hey, I did this. I communicated my explanation for why we need to change. We got to be simple. The person hearing the message heard nothing. Or sometimes the person hearing the message says, What does that mean for me? I already deliver simple experiences every day. I guess that means I don't need to do anything different. So you've lost that audience right there. So taking that dot further in terms of we need to simplify because of X, either your market conditions have changed, your client retention and attrition has changed, or maybe you're trying to enter a new segment, bring it to life, bring some data points, and bring some amazing connected stories into the conversation that can tug at the heartstrings. This is where the art piece of it comes in beyond the science. You have to tug at the heartstrings, the whiffums that you have to offer to your audience so that there is a hook for them to latch onto and say, that strategy appeals to me and I want to be a part of it. They might still not know why or how to be a part of it, but it's got to appeal to their day to day value that these amazing colleagues and customers participate in this ecosystem. They've got to have a hook and feel for it. That's to me the first thing. And then the second thing is truly bringing along very, very simple pieces of scope to start the work. One of the biggest reasons that transformations tend to get stalled or stuck is when we stop, when we pause with painting magnificent pictures and pause there. The most difficult thing is to take a vision and deconstruct it. The deconstruction into tangible pieces that are attainable with real results that builds beliefs, that provides just enough momentum in the organization for people to continue. Again, back to latch on to the WIFMs are so those are the two things I would say are probably the most important starters for a transformation.
Yeah, and I love the way that you said that of helping people. It's for me, it's are there enough breadcrumbs for people to follow, right?
Totally.
Because it's already in your head, you're already in the future. You've stated the future state and you're already there. And then you turn around and everybody's kind of like, some of them are still at the starting line. Some of them are still putting on their shoes or won't put on, and some of them took a step, but now they're lost. So there's a lot in terms of communicate. You can't over communicate, right? Laying out the breadcrumbs for everybody. That's a huge part of the job, right? That you can't under communicate. You can under communicate. You can't over communicate because people need those touch points, of what's the next step, what's the best next step, what's the best next step, and helping them to find that and find their place in this new experience that you're describing. They want to go there with you. They just don't know the path as well as you do.
That's right. That's right. And it's okay if they all don't want to go with you at the beginning. The approach that sometimes some brands take is we shall go forth and conquer, regardless of whether the surrounding ecosystem is with you or not is interesting. That might work in some cultures, but I would say in today's modern management styles, being a servant leader is important to me personally, and bringing people along is really important. So they might not all come along in the beginning, but continuing to understand truly the why is another bit of a secret sauce here as well. Typically, people are not opposed to change. It's usually they don't understand it or have some fear because they think you are displacing something for them. And there is a sense of loss. So, in order to be a successful transformation leader, it's not project management at all. That's just a part of it. And sometimes there's confusion between the two. Hey, I got a really great project plan. Let's go execute. That's great. That's step number, you checked off a box. The key to victory or the key to success and progress is that you've truly understood people's motivations. If you've moved their cheese or if you've created a sense of loss, is there a way to bring them along, a different way to bring them along? And there might not be in some cases, but in 95% of the cases, people want to be part of something successful and build something cool and great. Nobody wants to be left out. But if you can have the empathy and the kindness to bring them along and get them to that point, it's a great win because you'll land at your destination with a full fleet, to your point. It's not you there by yourself, everyone else scattered everywhere else.
And you're talking about the distinction between change management and change leadership, right?
That's
so
right.
You're engaging as this is change leadership. How do I create the conditions, the container for if there is change management that has to happen, we can
Yep.
do that. But on a bigger, larger context is, how do I help people feel aligned? How do I help people feel empowered and a part of what we're doing and see their place and help them make their transformation, right? You're not just transforming the organization, you're helping those individuals to see what's their opportunity to transform as a part of this.
I love that, Greg. I think you're spot on. I do view the two things as very distinct. Change management is a practice that has existed for some time. There are some very deep rooted methodologies and philosophies around how to do it. I won't even touch that. When I think about change leadership, it's an art and a science baked in and tied very closely to the strategy of the brand. You take the strategy of the brand, you've got a piece of it, and you want to do something with, not to, with a group of individuals and leaders in order to achieve a particular result. And so when you replace the two with the with, and we're on a mission together and you travel on a journey together, that's very different than saying, I'm on a racetrack, number one, and I'm competing with 6 other individual contributors, seeing who gets there first, versus I'm on a team sprinting together and we're all working as a team to get to a particular place where we all win together. That's a very different mindset. It's a very different management philosophy. It requires intensive communication, great storytelling. It requires bringing, a certain data and a technology mindset to it, but all in a bubble or covered with a layer of servant leadership and empathy. So you know how to connect the dots, how to move my hearts and minds, but very much with a business outcome focus.
Yeah, so you mentioned the team. So I want to ask you specifically. So you, as the leader, point them in the right direction, right? Here's what success looks like. Here's our highest intent. But you're a very senior leader. So you got to rely on a team of people to figure out how are we going to get there and to activate on that work. So when you think about a team that is really leaning in and performing well, what's the one behavior or practice that there are a lot of people listening who are team leaders, and you get teams to really lean in and produce change because of the way that they collaborate and the way that they engage across the organization? What's the one thing that you really look for in your team that, man, if we all did this, we're going to soar?
Greg, that's a very hard question, because picking one thing of anything in any question, like if you were to ask me what's one wine that I would like, it would be impossible for me to choose.
It's impossible for both of us to answer that.
That would end this podcast. But no, the one thing that I think is universally applicable, if leaders could look for and coach their teams to and encourage their teams to, I have to think about this one, but for me, it would be the art of listening. And the reason I say that is oftentimes, and I say this because I've grown a spectrum of teams from various points to high performing teams. So over my 2+ decades, there have been various starting points, but we've grown together with myself and my colleagues over many, many years, working even with you in many situations. We've grown to high performing. We've grown teams to be high performing. And when we get to that point of that, watching that high performance, and you sit back and you're just observing, one of the most common traits that I see there is the art of listening. Curiosity, listening with curiosity, listening with positive intent. And that seems to be a game changer, because then you're not talking past each other. You actually understand each other's intent. You know where they're coming from, whether you like it or not, before you interrupt and you choose to insert your point of view. It forces a much more open and frank dialogue than what really happens in the corporate environment today. I wish I could go write a book just about the art of listening, because that alone would be incredibly powerful. I think some of us, as we, and I say collectively, we in the world, like as we grow up and into becoming more senior leaders, I feel like some of us lose the ability to listen over time, because we become steeped, and then I'm reflecting on myself here, not others, but we sometimes become steeped in, I've done this many times, so maybe I have a strong opinion about something, versus that new employee who's just come fresh out of college. It's amazing the perspective they can come and bring to the table, and that there should always be a place for that.
Yeah, I love that you said that, because you know that we've been in meetings where I sometimes in meetings I count the number of questions people ask of one another. You know this, but I've done it with your
Yes.
meetings, and
Oh,
and we're
yes.
not asking questions of one another because we're not really listening to one another, and we're not curious. And so I see that as a sign of the development of the team's health, that we're listening more, and the evidence that we're listening is we're asking better questions of one another, and we're leaning in with, and we're developing empathy and curiosity, and that helps us become a better team, that we're not just delivering monologues and waiting while someone else is talking. We're not stuck in debate, but we're really in listening and engaging with empathy, and that leads to, oh, I got a question about that, and that's a sign of health for a team. So I love that you said listening. So a lot of our listeners are younger leaders, early career, first time managers. And I'm curious, what advice, when a younger leader, a first time manager, you're sitting down for a skip level and you're mentoring someone, what's the advice that you find yourself giving to early career, first time managers who really want to not just succeed in that role, but kind of really accelerate their path? What's the advice you're sharing?
This is going to sound very simple. There is a lot of advice that a lot of executives will provide to younger, newer, let's call them newer managers kind of coming in. But the simplest thing that I can think of is to be bold and be brave. And there is a reason why I say that. It's not just purely in context of bravery of an act, right? Or boldness of your action. It's across your intellectual thought process. It's across the desire to make change. It's with the intent to make recommendations in meetings. It's the ability to want to do new things and raising your hand. So, be bold, be brave is something that's near and dear to my heart. I have had the pleasure this past few months in my new role at Holman to meet an incredible group of folks who every day, these are newer folks, specifically speaking about newer leaders that I met with who serve our clients, and they have an incredible freshness to their perspective that they're bringing. And I welcome that. What might sometimes be holding that generation back is the hesitation to put forth those ideas. Hey, I don't have as much experience in this industry. Maybe my idea is not the best. Maybe it's going to be perceived as something that just doesn't fit here. Should I raise my hands for this because I'm really busy with this other thing, so maybe it won't be perceived well. So there are a lot of barriers that people tend to put around themselves. So to me, be bold, be brave is a mantra. I actually follow that today. I would say not just the younger leaders. I follow that today, and I have to, sometimes I wake up in the morning and say that to myself because that's the day ahead of me. Or I look back on the days I'm reflecting and saying, yeah, I was bold and brave today. That was I know I did the best I could. So that's something I personally follow. I would say everyone could try it out.
I love it. I love it. And you do live that. So I can attest to that.
Not successfully every day. I might be a little too
Not every
brave
day.
some
Oh, yeah.
days.
We do the best we can every day.
That's right. That's
This is
right.
my 100% today. This is what 100% looks like today.
This is all it is today. Exactly. Exactly.
And that's okay. So I could talk to you for another hour, but I promise our listeners that we keep these short and sweet. And this has been that. I'm so grateful that you came on and I have this conversation with you that we have all the time, but now we had it where, it's recorded for the podcast. I'm just so grateful. Yeah, like I said at the start, you are my definition. You are an ultra leader, right? An ultra leader, push the limits, go to the edge, keep going, and engage with consciously and compassionately and with concern for other people, all about enabling positive transformation. So you are the embodiment of ultra leadership. I just want you to know that. And I really
Oh,
appreciate
thank you, Gray.
you taking the time to talk with me today and share your wisdom. So I want to give you the final word. You know how we end our meetings, right? So what are the lessons we've learned and what are we grateful for? Because it's good for our brains to share gratitude. So what are you grateful for today?
That's a great wrap up, and I knew you would bring that up. I've been well coached and trained on starting and ending on that. So there is something I will share because we've gone through so many conversations over the years with, what are you grateful for, and wrapping with that. Every Friday, I have started a routine with my team to share Friday gratitude. So it's a bit of a reflection of the week and then sharing gratitude for someone on the team. Not necessarily gratitude for something that happened in my life, but it could have happened in my life. But the point is, the science behind it, you explained it very well, but I'm seeing it in action as well, where expressing words loudly, vocally, verbally, and expressing gratitude can create a certain set of reactions and a chain reaction, I should say. So when you express gratitude for a person in a group of 50 people, there is a multiplier effect there. And this person that I expressed gratitude for received gratitude from the other 40 people on the chain. And it became this incredibly celebratory morning for this person who was overwhelmed and in a positive way with all the gratitude that came her way. And then everyone gets to feel it. So what I am personally grateful for today, because I reflected on that before I got on this podcast, is I truly, truly believe at this point in my career that it is a privilege to be a leader. No one is entitled to be a leader. You don't get it. It's not given to you. You don't just inherit it. It is a gift. So treat it as a gift. Be incredibly grateful, which is what I am, to be a leader. And I will continue to find every way I can to help not just my team, but the people around me, both in the company that I serve, but generally the people around me, because it makes me feel great. So I brought it back around to me. It makes me feel great. However I can help everybody around me, that's what I'm grateful for.
I love it. I love it. Well, you've helped me today because I'm just going to smile the rest of the day. This has just been so much fun. Yeah, I'm so grateful. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And thanks to you for listening. If you're liking what you're hearing, please like us, review the podcast, share it with your friends. Our intention is to talk with real leaders like Aarthi today to get real lessons so that we can all keep on the journey of real learning. So thanks to you for listening. Thanks again, Aarthi. And until next time, stay on the trail and keep going. If you're enjoying Ultra Leadership, please take a minute and give us a review wherever you find your podcasts. And please stay in touch. Sign up for our Ultra Leadership newsletter at ultraleadership.com. Now, before you jump to your next meeting, I invite you to reflect on what you heard today. What stood out for you? What insight might you want to incorporate into your leadership practice? Until next time, remember, as a leader, you always have the power to shape the future and change lives. So go to the edge and push farther. Thanks for listening.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.